You're watching Newsfeed PM. Let's pick up on this important discussion now. September 2023 marks National Wills Week. Now, having a will in place alleviates the stress for your family. With the juggling act of balancing life at work, it is easy to forget to ensure that a will is in order. Experts saying that estate planning should never be on the back burner. Let's talk more now on this, and we speak to Tana, an associate legal practitioner at MVR Attorneys. Ms. Patsa, thank you very much for your time.
Thank you for having me.
Let's begin with the question of why is it important to have a will in place, but also importantly, who is competent to make a will in terms of applicable laws in South Africa?
Okay. So, I always say to my clients that when you have a will in place, it's basically something that says you have a voice. Even if you have died, you basically get to decide how your assets are distributed, who the beneficiaries you want to be of your asset, and they actually get to benefit. And you're also avoiding all the unnecessary drama that, can come from family members. And, you'd have an uncle saying that I'm going to be taking over, I'm going to be looking after these children, so I'm going to take everything. So you get to have a voice. You get to speak and say, as a responsible adult, I'm going to make sure that there's actually a will. There's a document that says my family, my children, they are legally protected. So it's very important. Yeah. And who is competent to make a will in terms of the Wills Act? We need to look at someone who is 16 years and older. That's what the Act says. But they need to be of sound mind. By that we mean they need to have the mental capacity to actually appreciate, and they do have an understanding of the implications, the consequences of drawing up the will. Yeah. So it's someone that has to be 16 years or older, and they're of sound mind, basically.
Is it important to approach an attorney, or basically, simply put, a lawyer who will help you draft that will, or is it not really a problem for an ordinary person to draw up a will? Why is it important, I suppose, is the essence of my question. Why is it important to approach a lawyer to help you draft that will?
That's a very good question, Xoli, because most people, they think that we as lawyers, we basically actually trying to just make money by saying they need to come to us, and then we need to guide them through and advise them accordingly why they should have a valid will. So lawyers, we are well equipped. We are trained. We have the necessary knowledge, we have the skills, we know exactly what are the requirements, to draft a valid will. Because, with internet and everything, you can easily download a template on Google, and then you can draft it and do whatever that you need to do. But what you may miss is that actually you've drafted 3 pages, but in terms of the applicable law, because there are statutory requirements that you have to follow. So in terms of the applicable law, what it says, a lawyer then would tell you that you need to have signed each and every page. This has got to have been done in the presence of competent witnesses. And you also, as a layperson, you're not going to understand, you're not going to know who is a competent witness. Then I will come and tell you that, in terms of the formalities of a valid will, you would have to look at someone who's of 14 years old, someone who understands also what they're doing. They need to attest to it. They also, your witnesses, they would also have to sign. But you're not going to get this information if you're not equipped. Because also what's important, what people miss is legislation, they're constantly being amended. You're not going to know that as a layperson. But because this is my area, this is what I do for a living, I know, then you come to me, then I would have advised and say, Xoli, laws have been amended. We've drafted a will about 6 months ago, but this is where we are today. So let's go back and amend your will and always make sure that it is valid, because it's a critical document that you're dealing with. It's your estate, you're dealing with your entire life. Yeah. So what's the point of having a document of that nature which is not valid? So you have got to get some guidance. You need a lawyer, and you also have to consistently speak to your lawyers. Whatever that happens, you need to consult and make sure that whatever is happening with the laws changing, you are also informed of that.
Yeah. What happens then, Tana, when a person dies without a will in place, the common problems faced by those they leave behind? What are some of those?
Sure. So basically, if they die interstate, then the provisions of the Interstate Succession Act would come into place. What we are saying there is that you have died, but you didn't make the necessary provisions in place. But then whoever is assigned to administer your estate, they would start by looking at, if you were married, did you have a spouse? Were they descendant to your children? Then they would get to, distribute your asset according to that. So then we would consider the spouse, we would consider the children, which also is fair. They would go as far as if you didn't leave a spouse behind, you didn't have children behind. Then we would consider, did you have parents? Then they would get to benefits from your estate. But also would also ask, if you don't have parents, were they siblings? Who were your, immediate family members? Then it goes down like that. But the problem that comes with that is it's very costly. Having to administer your estate, having to do the whole thing, because they would have to appoint an executor who's going to assist with the whole thing, because you haven't appointed anyone. So it's more just like trying to be in a queue now to try and have this thing wrapped up, which is going to take very long. It's frustrating to those who are left behind. They're trying to benefit from your estate, but also there's this lengthy process now that they are faced with, because they don't have another option but to go with, with the interstate option.
Let's talk about the concept of a joint will. And I think I speak here in the case of married couples.
Sure.
Is that the best option?
Okay. So basically, when you're dealing with a joint will, you have two people. It's usually married people that would opt for that option. You have two people with the same intention. So it's usually regarding their property. Right. So you'd say, this is how we want our property to be distributed. So you have a will, we align, we come together as a married couple. But whatever decisions that are taken, you need to make sure that you have both the partners. They come together. You cannot unilaterally wake up and say, I don't like the way Tana dresses up, so I'm going to go now and approach a lawyer and change our will that we've drafted together. So if you want to revoke that will, it has to be like a united thing, because that's how you would have done it. But the issue, Xoli, that would come with something like that is if another spouse now has died, right? And then the remaining spouse now, they want to make some changes, maybe with the property. So maybe the property had been bequeathed to one of the children or all of the children in equal shares, right? So then you face some economic challenges and you say, now I want to get rid of this property, I want to sell this property. This is the issue, because you still need the other spouse. So that having to administer that and all of that, the admin that comes behind that, because the other spouse is no longer around, then that's where you might face challenges. Yeah. But while we're talking about marriage and divorce, I also want to explain what the effect is when you're dealing with, when you have a will in place already and you happen to be divorced. It doesn't change anything. Your will, the validity of your will, it remains in place. You have a will that you've drafted. So you would have, like I said before, you would have to contact your lawyers. You would have to say, the status now, my status has changed. I'm now divorced. I'm about to get married. Then you would sit down, go back to the drawing board with your lawyers and make the necessary changes, because you constantly have to speak to your lawyers and say, this is where I am and this is the situation. Please advise me accordingly. But you need to know that if you had drafted a will as early today and you get divorced, that it happens. You get divorced, you would have to communicate and you would have to make the necessary changes, or else they will still benefit as if you guys did not divorce. Yeah. Funny enough, I had a client that's needed some guidance on this, and what she was saying, her issue was she actually has stepchildren that they've formed a great relationship with the children, and she advised me. The first thing that I asked, I was, what's your type of your marital regime? So then I would know how to advise her accordingly, because if you are then married out of community of property without the accrual, then when you have a will, then that's the only time your spouse gets to benefit. But if it's the other one in community of property, even if there's a will in place, I might not have a say, because then the Matrimonial Property Act would come in place, and then it would say this is how your estate is supposed to be dissolved. But in a situation of my client, she was married out of community of property, and then she hadn't included an accrual, which is great, which is another topic for another day, what people should consider. And I was able to advise her and say, because your marriage is ending, you're going through a divorce, but you've had a great relationship with your stepchildren, you can exclude your spouse. Is not going to benefit in any way. But because you've had a great relationship with his children, then whatever that you had bequeathed to your spouse, then it can fall down to his children. Yeah. You know, you have a discretion. You get to decide how everything should unfold. That's the beauty about it. So we should take this seriously, especially during the Wills Week. People should make sure that, you know, they consult a lawyer. Also, the Legal Practice Council, there's actually a program that's running where there are law firms across the country that are actually drafting wills for free. So this is the time that you guys should take advantage and make the most of this and get a will. Get your life sorted out.
Tana Patsa, let me thank you very much for that legal advice, a legal practitioner at MVR Attorneys, talking to us about the importance of having a will in place.